God only gives you wealth when you eliminate these 6 sins. Andrew Carnegie. There is a silent lie many people believe. That wealth is only money. That prosperity is only material. That financial growth depends only on external effort. Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in modern history, discovered something far beyond that. He realized that life functions as a system of spiritual and mental responsibility. And he used to say something few people like to hear. God does not hand wealth to those still ruled by their inner sins. Not because God wants to punish, but because wealth amplifies who you already are. If you carry disorder inside, wealth becomes destruction. If you carry fear, wealth becomes anxiety. If you carry ego, wealth becomes arrogance. If you carry envy, wealth becomes endless comparison. So before God entrusts something greater to someone, there is a silent process. The purification of character. Carnegie observed this repeatedly. Talented, intelligent, capable men received opportunities and lost everything. Why? They didn't lack skill. They lacked moral and mental structure. He saw wealth as a spiritual weight, and only those who eliminate certain inner sins can carry that weight without collapsing. Today you will understand the 6 sins that prevent wealth from remaining in a person's life. This is not superficial religion. It is inner structure. Sin 1, pride disguised as self-sufficiency. This one is silent. It is not loud arrogance. It is the internal attitude of someone who believes they already know enough. Carnegie said pride closes the mind. The person doesn't listen, doesn't learn, doesn't adjust, doesn't admit mistakes. And wealth requires constant growth. God does not expand the life of someone who thinks they have already arrived. Because growth stops, and what stops begins to fall. Carnegie, even as a billionaire, kept learning, listening, reviewing decisions. Humility keeps the mind open. An open mind sustains growth. Sin 2, envy that turns into comparison. Envy doesn't seem serious to many, but it corrodes the mind. The person does not celebrate. They compare. And comparison steals focus. Carnegie said those who live looking at others' success lose the energy they should use to build their own path. Envy creates bitterness. Bitterness leads to emotional decisions. Emotional decisions destroy prosperity. Wealth requires internal focus, not external distraction. Sin 3, laziness disguised as, I deserve rest. Carnegie wasn't talking about healthy rest. He meant mental laziness. The kind that avoids difficult decisions, avoids invisible effort, avoids discipline when no one is watching. He said God does not grant expansion to those still running from responsibility, because wealth multiplies responsibility. If someone avoids handling the little, how will they sustain the much? Mental laziness is refusing growth, and without inner growth, there is no sustainable outer growth. Sin 4, fear that paralyzes. Carnegie saw men lose massive opportunities because of fear. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear of not being enough. He said excessive fear is distrust in life's process, and constant distrust blocks action. Without action, nothing is built. Without building, there is no prosperity. Wealth requires practical faith, acting even without guarantees. Sin 5, greed that puts money above purpose. This one is the most dangerous. When money becomes the center, a heart becomes disordered. Carnegie said money is a tool, not the destination. Those who live only for money make decisions without principles, and decisions without principles eventually destroy everything. That's why he donated much of his fortune, because his treasure was not money. It was impact. Sin 6, lack of inner discipline. This one ties them all together. The person knows what they should do, but doesn't do it. Knows they need to change, but postpones. Knows they must cut habits, but negotiates. This creates weakness of character. And weak character cannot sustain wealth. Carnegie said discipline is the invisible foundation of prosperity. Without discipline, success becomes an accident, and accidents do not last. The truth few accept. God does not give wealth to satisfy ego. He gives it to those who can sustain responsibility without losing themselves. Wealth amplifies who you already are. If you are still governed by pride, envy, laziness, fear, greed, and indiscipline, growth turns into downfall. But when you eliminate these sins, your mind becomes organized. Your character strengthens. Your decisions become clearer. Your responsibility increases. And then something changes silently. You become someone growth can trust. And when that happens, it seems like life begins to cooperate. But it is not sudden miracle. It is inner alignment. Perfect. Now we move into the part that turns this from theory into real transformation. Because Andrew Carnegie did not speak about these sins as religious moralism. He saw them as structural blocks to prosperity. It's not that God doesn't want to give you wealth. It's that your internal structure still cannot sustain the level you are asking for. So now the practical point. How to eliminate these 6 sins in real life. Not with speeches. With daily training. 1. How to eliminate pride and create space to grow. Pride is when you stop learning. Proud person does not accept correction, does not ask for help, does not listen to those who know more, believes they already understand everything. Carnegie did the opposite. Even at the top, he asked, "What do I still not know that could make me better?" Daily practice. Listen more than you speak. Ask before you state. Admit when you don't know. Seek people better than you. Humility does not shrink you. It expands you. And wealth only grows where the mind keeps growing. 2. How to eliminate envy and free your focus. Envy steals mental energy. Every minute watching others' lives is a minute you are not building your own. Carnegie turned comparison into learning. If someone achieved it, there is a path. What can I learn from this? Daily practice. Stop measuring your life against others. Turn admiration into study. Focus on your evolution, not someone else's race. Wealth requires focus. Envy fragments the mind. 3. How to eliminate mental laziness. Laziness is not just a still body. It is a mind that avoids invisible effort. Strategic thinking, planning, organizing, studying when no one demands it. Carnegie said, "The man who does not discipline his mind will be a slave to circumstances." Daily practice. Do what must be done, even without desire. Finish what you start. Do not postpone what you know you must do. Laziness repels growth. Discipline attracts responsibility. And responsibility is the path to prosperity. 4. How to eliminate paralyzing fear. Fear does not disappear on its own. It shrinks when you act despite it. Carnegie would ask himself, is the worst-case scenario truly fatal? Or just uncomfortable? Daily practice. Make small, courageous decisions. Have conversations you avoid. Take steps that make you uncomfortable. Every action teaches your mind, "I can handle this." Fear decreases when your courage repeats. 5. How to eliminate greed and align the heart. Greed is when money becomes the master. Carnegie said, "Money must serve man, never the opposite." Daily practice. Pursue growth with purpose. Build something that benefits others. Think about legacy, not just profit. When money stops being the center, it stops controlling you. And this frees clarity for better decisions. 6. How to eliminate indiscipline. This is the foundation. Indiscipline is the root of self-sabotage. Every time you promise and don't follow through, your mind learns, "I am not reliable." Carnegie built discipline with simple things. Waking up on time, completing chosen tasks, keeping personal commitments. Small orders obeyed create internal authority. And internal authority sustains greater external levels. What happens when these sins begin to leave? Something invisible starts to happen. Your mind becomes clearer. Your heart becomes more stable. Your decisions become more mature. Your responsibility increases. And then opportunities begin to appear. Not because God changed his mind, but because now you have become someone capable of sustaining what you asked for. Carnegie understood this deeply. Wealth is not a prize. It is the consequence of aligned internal structure. The turning point. There comes a moment when you realize you are not shaken by everything. You do not react impulsively. You do not live comparing yourself. You do not postpone what needs to be done. You are not dominated by fear. You begin to act with maturity. And maturity is fertile soil for prosperity. Carnegie would say, God entrusts more to those who have already learned to govern themselves, because those who cannot govern their own mind cannot sustain what they receive. Perfect. Now we enter the part Andrew Carnegie would consider the most serious of all, because many people even manage to grow, but they don't sustain the growth. And here is the reason. Wealth is a test of character. Most people think the challenge is reaching prosperity. Carnegie discovered that the real challenge is remaining standing after it arrives. Because wealth does something dangerous. It amplifies who you already are. If the mind still carries pride, envy, fear, vanity, emotional instability, wealth does not fix that. It increases it. Carnegie saw men become arrogant, lose balance, destroy relationships, make impulsive decisions, collapse entire empires, not from lack of intelligence, but from lack of internal structure. He used to say, money places weight on character. If the foundation can't handle it, everything collapses. Why many lose everything after achieving? It is not bad luck. It is internal unpreparedness. When a person grows externally without growing internally, there appears anxiety to maintain what they have, fear of losing, need to prove superiority, excessive ego-based decisions, emotional disorganization. The mind enters war, and a mind at war destroys prosperity. Carnegie observed that internally prepared men handled growth as if they were already ready. Unprepared men collapsed. That's why he said eliminating these sins is not only a spiritual matter. It is a matter of sustainability. What God does before giving more. Carnegie believed prosperity is preceded by invisible preparation. You go through phases where you are ignored, tested, pressured, opposed, challenged. Most complain, but he saw this as training. Every difficulty strengthens patience, balance, resilience, clarity, emotional control. These qualities are what sustain wealth. Without them, growth becomes weight. The difference between those who receive and those who sustain. Many receive opportunity. Few sustain it. Whoever has not eliminated pride uses power to exalt themselves. Whoever has not eliminated envy keeps comparing, even at the top. Whoever has not eliminated laziness relaxes after growing. Whoever has not eliminated fear makes decisions from insecurity. Whoever has not eliminated greed never feels it is enough. Whoever has not eliminated indiscipline becomes disorganized with more resources. The result? They grow fast. They fall fast. Carnegie saw this repeatedly. Prosperity that lasts. He believed God entrusts lasting wealth to those who have already demonstrated maturity, self-control, responsibility, emotional stability, purpose beyond themselves. Because these people are not dominated by wealth. They use wealth wisely. The final point that changes everything. Carnegie did not seek wealth first. He sought inner growth. He said, if I become great on the inside, life takes care of expanding the outside. And that is the secret. You don't chase prosperity. You become someone prosperity can trust. The sign you are ready for a new level. You stop complaining. Stop comparing. Stop postponing. Stop acting impulsively. Stop seeking validation. You begin acting with balance. And when that happens, opportunities no longer feel like struggle. They feel like consequence. The final phrase Carnegie would leave. God does not withhold wealth as punishment. He withholds it as protection. When you become capable of sustaining it, it arrives and remains. Now we enter the part almost no one wants to hear. But this is where the game truly changes. Because after you eliminate the visible sins, the battle against the subtle sins begins. And these are the ones that prevent wealth from remaining. The sin that looks like virtue. Andrew Carnegie observed something curious. People could abandon obvious mistakes, yet remain trapped in flaws disguised as qualities. They worked hard, but lived in anxiety. They were responsible, but full of fear. They were dedicated, but driven by the need to prove themselves. On the outside, it looked like strength. Inside, it was disorder. Carnegie said God does not grant abundance to those still ruled by hurry, comparison, and the need for approval. Because that is not faith. It is sophisticated insecurity. When wealth becomes an idol, one of the greatest dangers is not loving money before you have it. It is loving money after it arrives. The mind begins to think, I can't lose this. I have to maintain my position. What if everything ends? That turns prosperity into fear. And fear produces wrong decisions. Carnegie saw brilliant businessmen become prisoners of what they had built. They had resources, but no peace. They had power, but no balance. And he said, wealth only remains in the hands of those who are not controlled by it. The test of character and silence. Before increasing what you have, life observes how you handle the little. Do you complain or give thanks? Do you compare or grow? Do you blame or take responsibility? Do you use your time with discipline or waste it? Carnegie believed prosperity is the consequence of invisible maturity. Most people want the reward without the formation. But formation is what prevents the fall after the rise. The moment everything changes, there comes a point in life when you stop asking to grow and start preparing to sustain growth. You organize your mind, control your emotions, act consistently, maintain character when no one is watching. At that moment, life's no turns into now, not by luck, not by coincidence, but because you became trustworthy. Why God does not rush the process. Carnegie saw delay as protection. If someone grows too fast without structure, they collapse. Pressure increases. Decisions weigh more. Responsibility multiplies. Without inner mastery, the person breaks. So waiting time is not punishment. It is preparation. The difference between those who chase wealth and those who become worthy of it. Those who chase wealth live in anxiety. Those who become worthy of it live in construction. One runs after opportunities. The other prepares until opportunities come looking for them. Carnegie said the right person at the right level finds open doors without desperation. Because maturity attracts responsibility. Prosperity that comes from within. When you eliminate pride, envy, fear, greed, laziness, and indiscipline, something changes. You no longer want wealth to prove yourself. You want wealth to fulfill purpose. And that changes the energy behind your decisions. You no longer act from ego. You act from clarity. You no longer seek to be seen. You seek to build. And prosperity feels safe in the hands of someone who does not need it to have value. The sin that brings down success, self-sufficiency. At the beginning, a person prays, seeks guidance, is humble, recognizes limits. But when prosperity comes, something subtle enters. I know now. I've already learned. I can handle this on my own. Without realizing it, dependence on God is replaced with dependence on personal strength. Carnegie saw this as the beginning of the fall. Because the same humble heart that attracts growth must remain humble to sustain growth. Prosperity tests character more than scarcity does. When success starts changing you inside, wealth reveals what was hidden. If pride existed, it grows. If ego existed, it appears. If vanity existed, it expands. The problem is not having resources. The problem is allowing resources to change your identity. Carnegie said the man whose character changes after prosperity was not prepared for it. God does not give something that will destroy you. If your identity is not firm, wealth becomes emotional weight, the test of the heart with power. Financial power gives choice. You can help or ignore, serve or show off, build or compete, bless or control. And each choice strengthens or weakens the heart. Carnegie believed wealth is a tool of amplification. It amplifies what already exists inside you. That is why God works first on the inside. The danger of abandoning the principles that brought you there. Many grow with discipline, then relax. They grow with faith, then trust only numbers. They grow with character, then make compromises. Carnegie said, "What brought you to the top is what keeps you there. If you abandon the foundations, the invisible fall begins. And the fall always starts inside before appearing outside." Why some lose everything? He observed that those who lose prosperity had usually already lost balance. It begins with small concessions, less discipline, less humility, less prayer, less awareness, more comparison, more impulsiveness. Prosperity does not disappear suddenly. It moves away when internal structure weakens. How to protect the wealth God entrusts. Carnegie lived by 3 principles after growing. 1. Constant gratitude. Gratitude protects the heart from pride. 2. Conscious generosity. Giving keeps the heart free from attachment. 3. Continuous discipline. Reaching a level does not mean you stop growing. He saw prosperity as responsibility, not privilege. The difference between wealth from ego and wealth aligned with God. Wealth from ego creates anxiety. Wealth aligned with God creates peace. One demands proving. The other allows serving. One traps. The other frees. When wealth comes after inner transformation, it does not dominate you. It becomes an instrument. The final sign you are ready. Carnegie said the true sign of maturity is this: you can grow without losing peace. You can gain without becoming arrogant. You can have without becoming attached. You can lead without controlling. When you reach this level, prosperity is no longer a test. It becomes a natural consequence. Everything said here points to a truth few teach clearly. Wealth is not only an external achievement. It is a spiritual responsibility. And that is why, according to the logic many attribute to Andrew Carnegie, God does not release true prosperity while the heart is still ruled by sins that distort character. It is not punishment. It is protection. Because money amplifies who you already are. If the inside is disordered, wealth accelerates the fall. If the inside is aligned, wealth expands purpose. So the sins that block prosperity are not just visible moral errors. They are internal states that sabotage the ability to sustain what one asks for. Pride blocks learning. Envy steals gratitude. Greed imprisons the heart. Dishonesty corrodes the foundation. Laziness weakens the structure. And self-sufficiency disconnects you from the source. While these rule you, prosperity is a risk, not a blessing. But when these patterns are removed, something shifts silently. You stop wanting wealth for comparison. Stop chasing money to prove something. Stop running from fear of lack. And you begin to see prosperity as a tool for building, serving, and purpose. At that point, wealth stops being an emotional desire and becomes a consequence of maturity. And here is the closing that summarizes everything. God does not give wealth to satisfy vanity. He gives it to those with a character not to be dominated by it. Prosperity is not only what enters your account. It is what does not leave your heart. Balance, humility, awareness, self-control. When these are firm, money does not control you. You control money. And when the inside is clean, aligned, and structured, prosperity stops being a test and becomes a mission. It is not about having more. It is about being someone who can have without losing themselves. And when you become that person, wealth stops being something you chase and becomes something that naturally finds you.